uh, installation qualifications. So, as far as your IQ, you're also testing safety features. You're generating your spare parts list. You're generating software documentation, and then you're also begin to test your environmental conditions, such as your clean room requirements or your temperature, humidity, all the things needed to ensure environmental control during manufacturing. So, some IQ examples. Um, you might want to test the memory to see if you have 8 gigs of RAM of memory, or your OS. Do you have the right OS on your particular equipment, such as you looking for Windows Server 2012. So you have your element, your specification. The actual is if you have it or not, and then you pass or fail it. If you meet that, you pass. If not, you fail. Then you do a verification signature. So this is an example of an IQ protocol example. So if you specify the equipment material to be 316 stainless steel, you should test to verify material. Sometimes steel is passivated, so you need to verify there are no residues from this process. So again, if you are um, intended for it to be made of a particular stainless steel, you need to test to verify that. If you specify a 5 force power motor, you'll want to ensure that it is the power requirement and power output are consistent with your specifications and that the room where it is installed can accommodate that power source. So again, if you specify you want this particular type of power, you need to verify that it was that your equipment is installed with this particular type of power. So some components of an IQ protocol. Generally, within the IQ protocol, you'll see a purpose section, scope section, an equipment system description and location, supplier, equipment components, and utilities. So these are all sections of the IQ protocol that's populated so that you have a general idea of what your protocol entails for that piece of equipment. Your IQ protocol will also entail construction, installation, and requirements, supporting documentation, spare slash change parts, drawings, testing and acceptance criteria, discrepancies, and summary conclusions. So then again, your IQ protocol will have all these as well. Next, we go into operational qualification. So operational qualification confirms that desired operational parameters of the equipment perform as intended. OQ normally follows after your IQ. So you do your IQ first, and then you go into your OQ. But you can also perform it as a combined IQ OQ protocol. So testing both at the same time. So test conformance to the DRS and FRS requirements. Test to confirm upper and lower operating limits in our worst case conditions. Raw material specifications and material handling requirements. So your OQ confirms that the desired operational parameters of the equipment perform as intended. Um, as we said, OQ follows IQ, and it can be combined as one. Um, and again, other things you can test are your process control limits, training, process change control, and software parameters. So OQ focuses on verifying the operation of each function of control devices, interlocks, your alarms, your sequence of operations, your operating specifications, instrument safety functions, and dynamic operation of equipment through anticipated process and operating parameters. So this is when your OQ is you want to test things that are operating with your equipment, such as alarms and interlocks. That's what you're testing for. So the completion of a successful OQ allows for the finalization of standard operating and cleaning procedures, operator training, and equipment preventive maintenance requirements. So your OQ is huge in that you can start generating these type of documents. So again, like the IQ protocol, the component of a OQ protocol, you'll have a purpose section, scope, equipment system description, operational qualification prereqs, your test equipment calibration verification, and standard operating procedures, all part of your OQ. Also, you have alarm control challenges, operating parameters, rationale, sampling locations, testing and acceptance criteria, test result documentation, any discrepancies you have in your testing, and then your summary and your conclusion. So commissioning is a well-planned, documented, and managed engineering approach to the startup and turnover of facilities, systems, and equipment to the end user that results in a safe and functional environment that meets established design requirements and stakeholder expectations. So this is the definition of commissioning. Now we'll go into PQ, or process qualification. So PQ should normally follow the successful completion of both your IQ and your OQ. So you cannot start your PQ until your IQ and OQ have been completely or successfully closed. This phase tests the ability of the equipment to perform consistently within the acceptance tolerance limits. It may be appropriate to perform it in conjunction with process validation. PQ should include tests using production materials or qualified substitutes with equivalent behavior under normal operating conditions with worst case batch sizes. And your key objective is to demonstrate that the process will consistently produce acceptable product under normal operating procedures. So when you get to your PQ, you're ultimately testing your whole process, making sure you can be produced consistently, and you're testing that you can operate in normal operating conditions. So a successful PQ will confirm the process design and demonstrate that the commercial manufacturing process performs as expected. The frequency of sampling used to confirm process and control should be justified. Tests should cover the operating range and the intended process. Challenges to the process should simulate conditions that will be encountered during the actual manufacturing, such as interventions, stoppage startups. And knowing that normal variation of the output is crucial in determining whether a process is operating in a state of control and is capable of consistently producing the specified output. So all things that are outputs of your process qualification. One of the outputs of OQ and PQ is the development of attributes for continuous monitoring and maintenance. Controllable causes of variation may include temperature, humidity, variations in electrical supply, environmental contaminants, variability of materials, wear and tear of equipment, and human factors, training, ergonomic factors, stress. So your PQ gives you all this data that you're able to test, and you want to make sure that you're continuously monitoring and maintaining once you go into your day-to-day manufacturing. So generally, you have a PQ checklist, and you'll want to check that have the product characteristics been defined, have the process parameter been set, has the SOP been established and maintained, does the SOP define nominal values for the process parameters, have operators been trained, has the method for monitoring been established, is there a mechanism in place to evaluate proposed process changes to see if the process requires revalidation? And is there a mechanism in place to evaluate process deviations to see if the process requires revalidation? So these are all some of the things you want to check as you're going through your PQ to make sure you have in place. So this is a high-level overview of IQ, OQ, PQ. So stage one, you go into your process design, and then you go into your PQ. Then you're doing your facilities, utilities, and equipment, and then PPQ, process qualification, on our way to continued verification. So everything we talked about, this is a high-level overview of the whole IQ, OQ process, going from your design to your testing, to your qualification, to continued process verification. So we have some questions that we're not answering here, but will be in your test, but I just want to, I'll read them, and then you can think about it and have an idea of how you want to answer it in your test. So first question, before your equipment is delivered, you must perform an FAT at the vendor's facility, true or false? Second question, verification of correct installation of components takes place in which of the following? Is it your PQ, IQ, OQ? And a test to confirm upper and lower operating limbs is conducted in which of the following? Is your PQ, IQ, or your OQ? Next, we'll go into how many PPQ batches are enough. So when we're done with this section, you'll be able to discuss regulatory expectations and use a risk-based approach to determine the number of validation batches for a study. So is there a magic number to PPQ batches? No, there's no magic number. In recent history, it's been said that 3 should be enough, or 3 consecutive batches should be enough. But as we're gathering data, just because you do 3 successful batches, is that really proving that you're in a state of control? So there's no magic number, but I guess each site, each type of process you're doing, uh, you can dictate what you think is appropriate and go from there. But three is widely used, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily mean that you limit yourself to three. If you need to do five, seven, there's no magic number.